West Virginia basketball is back in action on Monday night, and we've got you covered here with this game preview between the Mountaineers and Mississippi Valley State coming to Morgantown. We got you covered here on episode 116 of Mountaineer Moment. This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Mountaineer Moment. My name is Troy. I am your host here on Mountaineer Moment. Again, this is episode 116. The longest little break we've had here in show history. Took the week off just as the Mountaineer basketball team has had the week off, but they're back in action on Monday night, and like we've done every game so far this season, we're going to give you a preview between West Virginia and Mississippi Valley State, who's coming to Morgantown on Monday night for a matchup with the Mountaineers. Mountaineers' final tune-up game before conference play begins in January. Hard to believe we're already here. Christmas is here. The new year is almost upon us, and so we've got a lot to get into on this episode. As always, we're available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you are, whatever platform you're watching or listening. Join the Mountaineer Moment movement, and we got you covered here for all things West Virginia football and basketball. And like I mentioned, one of the things that we've done so far this basketball season, on the young season, as we inch closer toward January, is we get to preview each of West Virginia's games, usually coming out 24 to 48 hours before they tip off with their opponent, and they are back in Morgantown after coming off a loss. It's a painful loss. It was kind of maybe a good thing that they had, over a week off after that game in Cleveland, 89-88 loss in double overtime to Ohio State. It's only, a little over a week ago. It feels like even longer to me. I don't know why, but it does. 89-88, you fall in double OT. You had a second half lead that you lost. You'd like to have that one back, but you're onward. Obviously, we know the trend that West Virginia has been on. We've talked about it if you've been here any amount of time on Mountaineer Moment. Beating up on teams you're supposed to beat and losing all four of those games that were toss-up games, if you can say it that way, against higher quality opponents, power conference opponents. We'll talk about that more even toward the end of the episode, but that's where West Virginia sits, right? They come off that loss to Ohio State, on December 13th, that Saturday, and now off for 9 days, not playing again until Monday against Mississippi Valley State on the 22nd at home. Good to be back at home and good to play a team that's just, it's crazy we've gotten this far into this episode in a few minutes and not mentioned just how bad Mississippi Valley State is. The Delta Devils sit at 1-11 this season, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them, how they got here, some numbers to know, some players to know for this team, and then we'll end with, West Virginia, another opportunity, not to bolster your resume or anything, but to add another W in the win column, which you desperately, desperately need, because you haven't beat anybody yet. You're just beating up on teams that aren't very good, and that's just where the West Virginia is right now. I know I just said that, but I'll say it again. That's where they're at right now. Now, this Mississippi Valley State team that's coming to Morgantown, and you can look it up if you don't believe me, they are 1-11, and their lone win back in early November against a school, and if you don't believe me, look it up for yourself, against a school named Mississippi University for Women, the Owls of the Mississippi University for Women. Now, obviously, the obvious question, thought, thing that comes to mind immediately when you see that is that team made up of women? The answer is no. This is a Division III school, I guess originally founded for women, and now men are there, the Mississippi University for Women. That is the only win that Mississippi Valley State has on their resume this season, 97-61 fashion against the Mississippi University for Women. And I'll keep saying that because I think it's hilarious, but that's their only win against the Owls of the Mississippi University for Women, 97-61 back in early November. They lost one prior to that to UAB, and then since then, they've dropped 10 in a row. Their season opener got waxed by UAB 106-55. They lost to Murray State 108-60. They lost to Hawaii 88-56. Texas A&M they played, who hung 120 on them, although they scored 84 on that one, did Mississippi Valley. 120-84. Texas A&M scored 68 points in the second half. Kansas State, they played another Big 12 team, 108-49. K-State had 55 and then 53 in the second half. And then they're coming off a loss to Florida State, 96-49. So any team that you know on this schedule that has a name or a power conference opponent, certainly they're struggling with. Florida State 96-49 just a few days ago. And now the schedule continues, and they get West Virginia on the 22nd. And then next Monday, after the holiday, they get Oklahoma at Oklahoma. So 2 more power conference opponents on the schedule for Mississippi Valley State, whose lone win is against the school that has women in their name of their university. That's just the facts. Believe me, just look it up yourself. So crazy thing there. 1-11 team coming to Morgantown. And I've said it seems like a broken record at this point on Mountaineer Moment that these teams, West Virginia, is continuing to face and, quote, beat up on, just aren't very good. They're just not, right? West Virginia has played Mercyhurst. Mercyhurst is sitting at 5-8. Real quick, I'll go through a few of them. West Virginia has played against Coppin State, who was 2-9 at that point. They are 2-13 at this point. West Virginia beat them by a lot. West Virginia just played Little Rock and beat them. They currently sit at 3-9. West Virginia played Lehigh, who is currently 4-9. West Virginia played Mount St. Mary's, who is 4-9. West Virginia played Campbell, who is 5-6. No teams with a winning record. West Virginia, you might as well go through them all until we find one. West Virginia played Pitt and beat them. Barely a winning record for the Pitt Panthers, 7-6 for Pitt. West Virginia lost to Clemson, lost to Xavier, and that's it. Right? We named every win. They beat Little Rock, losing record. They beat Coppin State, losing record. They beat Mercyhurst, losing record. Lafayette, did I say them? Lafayette, 3-10. Didn't say them, but they're 3-10, losing record. They beat Pitt, 7-6. They beat Lehigh, losing record. They beat Campbell, losing record. They beat Mount St. Mary's, losing record. West Virginia hasn't played anybody, haven't beaten anybody. They've played 4 teams: Clemson, Xavier, Wake Forest, Ohio State. 4 teams. They're not great, not ranked, not bad though. Ohio State just coming off a 1-point, I think it was a 1-point loss to North Carolina on Saturday night, 71-70. Yep. So on either side of their win against West Virginia, a double overtime win, they lost to lost to Illinois by 8, 13th ranked team in the country, and then they lost to North Carolina by 1 in a neutral site game, I believe. Yep, the CBS Sports Classic. So Ohio State, not a slouch. Wake Forest, really, really great player on their team. We saw him in full force against West Virginia. And then, Clemson and Xavier, and we can, continue to talk about that. But you know what happened in those games if you follow this program. But West Virginia, as they sit right now, big picture at 8-4, 4 losses to teams that are not great but not bad, not ranked, and 8 wins against teams that aren't good. You don't have a win on your schedule yet. You don't have a win, like a signature, certainly not a signature, but not even the step below a signature win. You don't even have that right now. Like, you just don't. You haven't beat anybody with a pulse. You just haven't. That's where the Mountaineers sit right now at 8-4. I'll give you a couple players and a couple numbers to know just relating to this Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils team. Leading scorer, filling it up this season, though, the 1-11 start for them. Michael James, guard, 21 points a game for the 6'1 guard from the state of Mississippi. And then they have another guy in double figures as well. Daniel Mayfield averaging 13 points and 6 rebounds a game for the 6'8 forward out of Georgia. Now, Mississippi Valley State, obviously struggling in the SWAC conference. They are the worst three-point shooting team in the conference, just at 28%. a game. They're among the worst, scoring. Obviously, we mentioned a lot of blowouts for this team, scoring just 65 points per game. They average the most turnovers per game as well, over 18 turnovers per game. We mentioned, it's not a gauntlet of a schedule, but it hasn't been the easiest road, obviously, and they've struggled. So a team that's simply just not very good. Their point differential is, 25 points a game, that they're losing by. There's some other teams in the SWAC that are even worse than that. Jackson State and Alcorn State, both those teams, 1-10 and 1-11. So similar story there. But again, what this means as we now transition to this, what this all means for this West Virginia basketball team. Well, you haven't played in 9 days. The last time you were out there, you choked away a game. You could say that, I guess. You surrendered a second-half lead. We'll put it that way. That's better. Against Ohio State, an opportunity to get what could be a big win, quad 1, quad 2, whatever you want to say. What could have been an opportunity to beat a team that's not bad. That's the reality. That is what we do know. You had an opportunity to do against Clemson, Xavier, Wake Forest, and Ohio State. Beat a team that's not bad, and you didn't. And so West Virginia's 8 wins. All of them are against bad teams. West Virginia's 4 losses. All of them are against decent teams. Now, again, you're playing against a team that's really, really bad, maybe the worst on your schedule, and it's your final tune-up before Big 12 play begins. So we're not going to sit here. West Virginia's going to win the game. They're going to win the game. If they don't win this game, they got more problems than we can even handle on one simple show here on Mountaineer Moment. But with that said, West Virginia is going to improve to 9-4. They will enter conference play in January against the number 4 team in the country where they sit right now, Iowa State, January 2nd, on the road, 9 o'clock tip on ESPN2. Rude awakening coming into that place to start Big 12 play. But all that said, this game against Mississippi Valley State, again, not keys to victory, not this, but things you want to see, like West Virginia's probably going to score a lot of points. West Virginia's probably not going to give up a whole lot of points. Their defense is going to look good. Their offense is going to look better than it does against these other teams that are quality opponents, which can be frustrating. We've talked about it because defense looks like a whole different team. Offense, too, when you play against someone that's not very good. Somehow, some way, though, and again, I'm not sitting here saying, well, you got to clean this up so you can go beat Iowa State. Like, I'm not sitting here saying we're going to beat Iowa State in any way, shape, or form. We haven't proven that we can beat anybody. I already said that. But this is your last opportunity in the non-conference to figure some things out, because every team, and I think this is pretty fair to say, every team from here on out through the Big 12 play is either significantly better or right on par with the teams that have beaten you. Right? You have 4 losses against teams that are Big 12 level competition, and some of them aren't as good as, right, obviously the top half of the Big 12, because you got teams like Houston, you got teams like Iowa State and Kansas and Texas Tech and Arizona and BYU, right? Like, those teams are on your schedule. So you got to figure some things out, because it's not going to get easier. This is your last easy, guaranteed, whatever, however you want to word that, win. And then the fun starts. And if you don't figure out how to muster up some wins, how to figure some things out offensively and defensively. Offensively, the number one struggle to me as not a casual viewer, right? Because I'm super invested and super into it and know what's going on the floor. Number one thing to me is offensively, it looks like Honor Huff. It's like Honor Huff or nobody, or like we're not getting points. You run them around a bunch of screens, let them fire up a 3. That's the game plan. Sometimes there's chance more mixed in there, driving downhill to get fouled or get a bucket at the rim. It's kind of your offensive strategy at this point, and that's not going to cut it. As good as Honor Huff is, as amazing as he is, as many games as he's going to have this year where he knocks down, 7 or 8 threes, it's not going to be enough to win games. He's had some moments against Ohio State and Wake Forest and Clemson, and like even those games, like he had some moments, but it's not enough because you need help. You just need help from elsewhere. And obviously Trey Eaglestaff brought him to be a scorer. He has struggled this year, though he's looking a little better, looking a little more comfortable out there. Just needs to start seeing the shots fall. Chance Moore's here. Jackson Fields is, obviously they're back in the lineup. They're back in the fold, right? The one thing this team has is consistency and continuity now because you got everybody available. No major injuries. Amir Jenkins, he's here. Belo, Harlan Obioha, these guys got to step up. And it doesn't have to be the same guy night in, night out. But Honor Huff needs help offensively. It needs to come from 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of the guys that I just named. That's the reality. And so what is this game against Mississippi Valley State really going to do? Well, I don't know. Because your chances are you're going to win by a large margin. But you got to run some sets, run some stuff that you think can work. Maybe work's not even the right word. You think you were going to use, and maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work against Iowa State and Cincinnati after that, and Kansas after that, and Houston after that, and Colorado, and Arizona State, and Arizona. It's a gauntlet. It's the Big 12. Really impressive basketball conference. It's not going to get any easier, and you just have to start winning some games. That's just the reality of it. If you want this season to be anything of anything, you got to start winning some games against teams that are good. Because the reality is you've dug yourself a little bit of a hole because of the fact that you had opportunities, right? West Virginia's had opportunities slip through their fingers, literally, against Clemson, against Ohio State. Wake Forest was a tie game at halftime. You let them, go off in the second half, and you lost that one. And you got to start winning. You've lost the opportunities you've had so far. Because, again, you haven't beaten anybody yet. You have 8 wins on your record. It's going to be 9 heading into Iowa State, but what's that really doing for you? Because you haven't beaten anybody yet. That's offensively. Honor Huff, that situation. Got to get him some help. Defensively, and this is I guess take it with a grain of salt. It's kind of hard. We've talked about it here on Mountaineer Moment, probably after that Ohio State game last week. But you really need to, and I get that playing against Mercyhurst or Little Rock or Coppin State, Mercyhurst, you held them to 38 points. I'm not sitting here expecting you to hold Ohio State or Wake Forest to 38 points or 50 points. So it's not the expectation that comes with this, but we're seeing 2 different defenses, right? At times, you're not giving these teams that you've lost to, you're not giving them fits at all defensively. And it doesn't matter who you're playing at this D1 level, whether it's Mercyhurst or Ohio State, you should look a little bit like the same team, and you don't. We've mentioned it, and if you don't know this already, look it up. The second halves of these Mountaineer losses have been catastrophic. Xavier, they had 42 point. All 4 losses, you gave up 40-plus point second halves. 42 to Xavier. 2 nights before that, against Clemson, you gave up 45 in the second half after only giving up 25 in the first half. Wake Forest, mentioned that, tie game at halftime. You lost that game by 9 because Wake Forest scored 41 in the second half. Ohio State, you were up by 10 at half. They scored 41 in the second half, and then they beat you in double overtime. So the second halves are killing you. Because obviously it's in there. There's something in there about this defense that works. And that, maybe that first half defense against Clemson and against Ohio State, when you held these teams in the 20s, you see glimpses of this team that shuts teams down offensively. Coppin State, you held them to 49. Mentioned Mercyhurst. Pitt, you held to 49. Lehigh, you held to 47. Little Rock, you held to 58. So the first half, you're seeing that team. Then the second half, something happens that just something goes off the rails, and you lose. So second half defense has been a problem for West Virginia, right? A couple of these, you took a lead in 2 of those games into halftime. You took a lead, 7-point lead and a 10-point lead. And one of those games you were tied, and then one you were trailing at half, and you lost all 4. Not a recipe for success. And again, that's indicative of a second half, in a lot of ways, collapse, and a lot of ways a defensive collapse, because this team is not defending the same way in the first half and the second half. That's just the reality of it. So you got to find a way. Whatever adjustments need to be made in the halftime, as you're breaking down film and analyzing things, whatever adjustments need to be made, make them, fix it. because if we can put two halves together defensively, then we're going to win some games. That's just the reality of it. So, because again, a 3-point loss to Clemson, 9-point loss to Wake Forest, a 1-point loss in double OT to Ohio State. Can you imagine if you just played a little consistent defense? We could be sitting here talking about a 10-2 or 11-1 West Virginia team, and I'm not exaggerating. We could be sitting here talking about that if the defense stuck it out for a second half, but they haven't in those 4 games, and it's cost you. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now, but from Mississippi Valley State to Iowa State and Cincinnati and on the gauntlet of Big 12 play, you got to find a way to put two halves together defensively. All right, that's enough ranting in this game preview of the West Virginia Mountaineers and Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils. Final tune-up before Big 12 play begins for the Mountaineers. This is episode 116. Again, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Let's go Mountaineers.